I read the book Who Killed These Girls by Beverly Lowry, and it's a cold case about the yogurt shop murderers. Before I talk about the summary, the theme is memory, uncertainty, loss, and grief, which Beverly states within the first couple chapters. There are four main parts of the book: the crime, the Paul Johnson show, the courts, and unanswered questions. This book takes place in Austin, Texas on December 6, 1991, when four girls were murdered at, I can't believe it's yogurt shop. When first responders first arrived to the scene, it was very graphic for them because the girls were naked, bound and gagged, shot in the head, and then burned beyond recognition. The book first starts off with John Jones. He was the first police officer that arrived onto the scene, and that night he was actually getting interviewed by the local news to see what Austin crime was like and how they treated it. After Jones arrived onto the scene, he called firefighters and many other crime units to come and try and figure out how the fire started and the plan of events that led to it. After explaining details of the crime, the book goes into each of the girls' lives, both in school, out of school, their personalities, who they hung out with, and how their parents thought they were. Here's a yoga shop that Jennifer and Sarah Harbison, Eliza Thomas, and Amy Ayers got killed in. And then this is a sign that was up on billboards, in the newspaper, and hanging around town, trying to get information from people. The police tried to keep this crime from the public eyes, but word got out quickly, and rumors spread very fast throughout the town. The police were receiving a lot of false confessions and reports saying that people did things while there was no evidence, and they had a lot to sort through. Even with little evidence, they were able to accuse four guys of the crime. Their names were Michael Scott, Robert Springsteen, Maurice Pierce, and Forrest Welborn. The cops brought them in and questioned them, but later found that they had no information to fully bring them to court. At this point in time, Jones has been on the case for many years, and they have not brought anyone to trial, so new officers were brought into the case. The new officers looked through past information and new information that was being sent in, and came to the same conclusion that they wanted to question the same four guys again. However, this time they did get two of the guys to confess, Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott. These two were later taken to court and tried in a very lengthy process for both of them. Both trials were very misleading because there was no true evidence, and they only had what the guys said on the report. Scott and Springsteen did go to jail, but years later their case was retried due to DNA evidence found that they were not at the scene. These two guys were later released from jail, yet caused a lot of controversy among citizens in Austin and among the parents of the girls that were killed. I chose this book because I wanted something that would be more interesting, and I like watching like crime TV shows and stuff like that, and I have read about cold cases prior to this nonfiction book, so I just thought a cold case would be interesting to read. My thoughts on the book: it was very boring to begin. It was just a lot of background knowledge that I feel like could have been shortened up, and was just a lot of excessive information. Moving into the court cases, I was very interested in that. It was detailed but not too much, and it gave a good overview of what everything happened in court and outside of court. I would recommend this to someone who is an advanced reader and can read a lot. It's a very long book. It's 400 pages and has a lot of words on a page. It's very detailed and has a lot of high vocabulary words that I had no idea what they were. So definitely someone who knows a lot. These pages took forever to read because of the amount of words on them. I personally would rate this book 3.5 out of 5. It was just very advanced for me, and I'm not much of a nonfiction person, but the author is very well known, and her work has appeared in many places like the New Yorker, the New York Times, the Boston Globe, so a lot of people like her books, but it was just too much for me. The author, Beverly Lowry, has wrote 6 fiction books and 3 other nonfiction books besides this one. Some of the nonfiction ones are Crossed Over, A Murderer, a Memoir, and Harriet Tubman, Imagining a Life. At first, Beverly was not going to write about this cold case, but it sparked an interest in her because her son had died in a hit and run and they never found out the driver. And she knew what the uncertainty felt like, just like the parents of the girls that got murdered. The first quote I noticed was on page 6, and it's, "We lost our innocence that night." This quote fits the book as you read and learn about the gruesome details of the crime. Everyone working on the case, like officers, firefighters, and lawyers, will never forget the horrifying details of the case. On page 134, Rob says, "Sometimes I get things in my head that I can't get out." This quote comes into play during his interrogations. Anything the cops told Rob would get in his head, and he would then create a story based on what the cops wanted to hear. This later got him in trouble when he was fed false information, but since he heard it once and it was in his head, he believed it. The last quote I really liked was on page 322. "Everybody for whom the system has not worked, from the slain young girls to the defendants and suspects, and everybody who counts on a functional justice system." I feel like this quote really fits the book because it shows that the justice system was doing very questionable things, and they questioned many people with taking 2 men to court with no evidence just because they wanted to find out who killed the 4 girls. It also relates to how the parents were left with uncertainty and never got the answers they wanted. All done. Bye.